Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom is asking a court to block troops from helping with immigration raids. The governor has repeatedly stated he does not want the National Guard or the Marines in his state.
Well, this marks the first time since 1965 a president has sent the National Guard into a state without the governor's consent. Joining us now to discuss the significance of what we're seeing, we have John Hall, professor of U.S. military history at UW-Madison. Thank you for being on with us.
Hi, John. Good to see you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Likewise.
And I mentioned, 1965, the last time we saw something like this, when then President Lyndon B. Johnson sent in National Guard troops to protect civil rights advocates in Alabama. How does this compare to that?
Well, there's a bit of a symmetry. It's kind of an ironic one, right? So in that context, Kennedy and Eisenhower had done the same thing before Johnson. That was the most recent case of it. But what you had was local politicians and sort of local sentiment not being aligned with federal law at the time. And in that instance, verily, these elected officials pledged that they were going to obstruct the enforcement of federal law. In this instance, that's not the case, but you do have that sort of symmetry in terms of the misalignment of local sentiment and the prerogatives of the administration. But that's about the only similarity in this instance. And so in that instance, they did have a real just cause, I would say. I think most historians would agree to send in federalized forces to enforce the laws of the United States. But it's worth pointing out that in this instance, the administration has not invoked the Insurrection Act, which would allow federalized forces, Title X forces, to act in a law enforcement capacity. They're there by a different section of U.S. code, which allows them to work in a supporting capacity. But the president has teased the fact that he is seriously contemplating invoking the Insurrection Act, as he did during his first term.
What is the threshold for activating the National Guard to quell chaos? And in your opinion, do you think the protests that are happening in Los Angeles meet that threshold?
Well, in my opinion, I would say that they do not, right? Generally, there's sort of a three-part test of whether or not the conditions are bad enough to warrant this. The first one is, generally, if a governor says they're that bad and asks the president, please send us federal assistance, that meets the standard right there. And that has been the case, such as in 1992, when the governor of California asked for the intercession of federalized forces to help deal with the fallout of the Rodney King protests. The second test, though, bespeaks a lack of capacity in regular civilian law enforcement, where they just don't have enough to do the job. In this instance, you have between Governor Newsom and President Trump sort of a he said issue, in which Governor Newsom is pledging, we have this, and President Trump is arguing, manifestly you do not, so I'm going to do this despite the fact that you not only have not asked, but you've asked me not to do this. And the final standard, one in which it is really, really not that well spelled out, it leaves it open to interpretation, right? If there are conspiracies, unlawful combinations, threats of rebellion that need to be put down, the president can do this. This is where they agree to disagree, essentially. The president is asserting these are the conditions. Governor Newsom and the mayor of Los Angeles arguing that that is not the case. But under the particular section of Title X that the president has invoked, there's also the requirement that the president federalize or send in federalized forces through the governor of the state. And that's something that has not been done in this instance. So the legal argument that the state of California is making has a couple of different directions that it could go.
Very interesting. We are already out of time, unfortunately, but thank you very much for having this conversation with us.
We'll continue to follow this closely as it develops, and we'll have you back, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.